So Bas, you talked a lot about there about one of the really important things is deploying those models into production. I mean, there's a number of ways you can do that. There are a number of ways that it is useful and meaningful to put a model into your business. Can you talk about some of those for us?
Sure. Yeah, of course, it all depends on your own use case. So I'm not going to make a recommendation for one or for one method or one tool in specific. I mean that really depends on your company and on your use case. But what I could say is that there's a few ways to deploy your model. First thing, what you should realize is that usually what your model actually is a file or maybe a set of files, because that model is exported from an environment that where you train your model. Typically, a data scientist uses a notebook for that. Well, that's perfectly possible, although it's not considered to be the best practice for a production environment. But if you have a notebook, you write your model code in there, and at the end of your notebook, you export your model to an intermediate format, for example, to Pickle or to JobLib. Then that is the output of your training step, and that's basically just one file, or it can be a set of files. If you, of course, do that in a more controlled environment, like a continuous delivery pipeline, then you not have a notebook for that, but you really have a proper software package and a software script that is producing that model. But anyway, your model is a file. Let's first realize that. That a file can be wrapped with, because that file is not usable on itself. It needs to be wrapped with a layer of software so that it can be integrated with. And there's a few ways to do that. There's also some tools that do it in all different kind of ways. Well, first of all, you could just incorporate that file together with all of the rest of your application code and deploy it like as one big monolith, sort of. Just see that model file as one of the artifacts that's part of your application. That is possible. Technically, you can do that, but it's not really recommended because, as I already mentioned, is that your model will evolve. It will be retrained every day or every week or so. So what you don't want to do is every time that your model is retrained, your whole application needs to be redeployed to your production environment. And of course, also, it really doesn't fit with the standard ways of setting up an architecture, which is all based on modular, non-monolithic code, like microservices. So what is a more recommended way to do this is to deploy your machine learning model as a microservice. So to wrap that file, that model file that you have created when you train the model, to wrap it with a thin layer of software. It can be written in any kind of language. And to then deploy it as a microservice that can interact with the outside world. So that you have a dedicated service, for example, that can be approached with an HTTP call, and it gives a response back, and the response is just usually the prediction that the model makes. One other specific approach or option I want to mention is that in streaming data systems, so where you're actually handling massive amounts of data, big data streaming processing applications, then going across a network is sometimes not good enough, not fast enough usually, because there's always a bit of network latency. So while API-ifying, making your model into a microservice might be a good idea, it might not be fast enough to match your requirement in that case. And what you can then do is distribute your model in memory across all your nodes that are doing the data processing. So there's a specific case when you're doing data streaming, big data streaming, is actually to lazily load your model in memory and distribute it across your big data cluster.